Chapter 5. The Gods of the Gaels. Of the two Celtic races that settled in our islands, it is the earlier, the Gaels, that has best preserved its old mythology. It is true that we have in few cases such detailed accounts of the Gaelic gods as we gain of the Hellenic deities from the Greek poets, of the Indian divas from the Rig Veda, or of the Norse Izar from the Eddas. Yet nonetheless may we draw from the ancient Irish manuscripts quite enough information to enable us to set forth their figures with some clearness. We find them, as we might have anticipated, very much like the divine hierarchies of other Aryan peoples. We also find them separated into two opposing camps, a division common to all the Aryan religions. Just as the Olympians struggled with the giants, the Aesir fought the Jotans. Chapter 5. The Gods of the Gaels. Of the two Celtic races that settled in our islands, it is the earlier, the Gaels, that has best preserved its old mythology. It is true that we have in few cases such detailed account of the Gaelic gods as we gain of the Hellenic deities from the Greek poets, of the Indian divas from the Rig Veda, or of the Norse Izar from the Eddas. Yet nonetheless may we draw from the ancient Irish manuscripts quite enough information to enable us to set forth their figures with some clearness. We find them, as might have been anticipated, very much like the divine hierarchies of other Aryan peoples. We also find them separated into two opposing camps, a division common to all the Aryan religions. Just as the Olympians struggled with the giants, the Izar fought the Jotans, and the Divas the Azuras. So there is warfare in the Gaelic spiritual world between two superhuman hosts. On one side are ranged the gods of day, light, life, fertility, wisdom and good. On the other, the demons of night, darkness, death, barrenness and evil. The first were the great spirits symbolising the beneficial aspects of nature and the arts and intelligence of man. The second were the hostile powers thought to be behind such baneful manifestations as storm and fog, drought and disease. The first are ranged as a divine family round a goddess called Danu, from who they took their well-known name of Tautha de Danann, tribe or folk of the goddess Danu. The second owned allegiance to a female divinity called Domnu. Their king, Idek, is described as her son, and they are called Domnu's gods. The word Domnu appears to have signified the abyss or the deep sea, and the same idea is also expressed in their better known name of Fomers, derived from two Gaelic words meaning undersea. The waste of water seems to have always impressed the Celts with the sense of primeval ancientness. It was connected in their minds with vastness, darkness and monstrous births, the very antithesis of all that was symbolised by the earth, the sky and the sun. Therefore, the Fomers were held to be more ancient than the gods, before whom they were, however, destined to fall in the end. Offspring of chaos and old night they were, for most part huge and deformed. Some had but one arm and one leg apiece, while others had the heads of goats, horses or bulls. The most famous and perhaps the most terrible of them all was Balor, whose father is said to have been one Boranich, that is, the cow-faced, and who combined in himself the two classical roles of the Cyclops and the Medusa. Though he had two eyes, one was always kept shut, for it was so venomous that it slew anyone on whom its look fell. This malignant quality of Balor's eye was not natural to him, but was the result of an accident. Urged by curiosity, He once looked in at the window of a house where his father's sorcerers were preparing a magic potion, and the poisonous smoke from the cauldron reached his eye, infecting it with so much of its own deadly nature as to make it disastrous to others. Neither god nor giant seems to have been exempt from its dangers, so that Balor was only allowed to live on condition that he kept his terrible eyes shut. On days of battle, he was placed opposite to the enemy. The lid of the destroying eye was lifted up with a hook, and its gaze withered all who stood before it. The memory of Balor and his eye still lingers in Ireland. The Eye of Balor is the name for what the peasantry or other countries call the evil eye. Stories are still told of Balor Baiman, or Balor of the Mighty Blows, and Balor's Castle is the name of a curious cliff on Tory Island. This island, off the coast of Donegal, was the Fomorian outpost upon earth, their real abode being in the cold depths of the sea. This rule, however, as to its hideousness of Fomors, had its exemptions. Elithan, one of their chiefs, is described as an old manuscript as of magnificent presence, a Miltonic prince of darkness, a man of fairest form, it says, with golden hair down to his shoulders, who wore a mantle of gold braid over a shirt interwoven with threads of gold. 5 golden necklaces were worn round his neck, and a brooch of gold with a shining precious stone thereon was on his breast. He carried 2 silver spears with rivets of bronze, and his sword was golden hilted and golden studded. Nor was his son less handsome. His name was Bress, which means beautiful, and we are told that every beautiful thing in Ireland, whether plain or fortress or ale or torch or woman or man, was compared with him, so that men said of him, "That is a Bress." Balor, Bress, and Elthan are the 3 Fomorian personages whose figures seen through the mists of antiquity show clearest to us. But they are only a few out of many, nor are they the oldest. We can learn, however, nothing but a few names of any ancestors of the Gaelic giants. This is equally true of the Gaelic gods. Those we know are evidently not without parentage, but the names of their fathers are no more than shadows following into oblivion the figures they are designated. The most ancient divinity, of whom we have any knowledge, is Danu herself, the goddess for whom the whole hierarchy of gods receives its name as Tautha de Danann. She was also called Anu, or Anna, and her name still clings to 2 well-known mountains near Killarney, which, though now called simply the Paps, were known formerly as the Paps of Anna. She was the universal mother. Well, she used to cherish the gods, says the commentator of a 9th century Irish glossary. Her husband is never mentioned by name, but one may assume him, from British analogies, to have been Baal, known to the Gaelic tradition as god of Hades, a kind of Celtic dispater from whom sprang the first men. Danu herself probably represented the earth and its fruitfulness, and one might compare her with the Greek Demeter. All the other gods are, at least by title, her children. The greatest of these would seem to have been Noda, called Argetlam, or he of the silver hand. He was at once the Gaelic Zeus, or Jupiter, and their war god, for among primitive nations to whom success in war is all important, the god of battles is the supreme god. Among the Gauls, Camulus, whose name meant heaven, was identified by the Romans with Mars, and other such instances came readily to mind. He was possessed of an invincible sword, one of the 4 chief treasures of the Tautha de Danann, over whom he was twice king, and there is little doubt that he was one of the most important gods of both the Gaels and the Britons, for his name is spread over the whole of the British Isles, which we may surmise the Celts conquered under his auspices. We picture him as a more savage Mars, delighting in battle and slaughter, and worship like his Gaulish affinities, Tautus and Jesus.